everyone thinks that artists are in competition with each other here. No. What's good for one is good for everybody. We do period architecture installations, period rooms, and we just did a 17th century staircase that we installed at the Metropolitan Museum. So, and a lot of that work really feeds into our art. This 17th century staircase is this elaborately carved balustrade, and when we were in our 20s learning how to carve, we would go to the Metropolitan Museum and look at this. This is one of the most magnificent pieces of wood carving in existence. And so to actually spend 3 years of our lives taking it apart in one location, moving it and reassembling it in another location, and getting to handle all the parts and really learn the vocabulary of the carving. Because what's interesting is we've done reproduction wood carving, and when you're looking at this vocabulary and trying to reproduce it, you're thinking about it in one particular way, but the people who carved it, it was their vocabulary. It was the language they spoke, and so they didn't have to learn it. They can invent within it. I lived in Queens, New York, and the New York City public schools were pretty innovative at that time. There was a lot of learn on your own programs. It was the 70s, so there's still the hangover from the 60s atmosphere of experimentation. So I had a very energetic art teacher. So for 2 years, I had 2 classrooms on this hallway that was lined by posters with Picasso's Three Musicians, Matisse's Woman in a Purple Robe, and Henri Rousseau's The Dream. And so I passed these on my way to and from class every day. And so my earliest artistic education was actually in this classic modernism. So that was, to me, that was normal. And it was art that as a child that I could really relate to, because to look at Picasso's Three Musicians, it's like a painted collage, and this is a way of art that we were all working in at the time too, cutting out colored paper and pasting it. So it was really a very natural thing for me. In I think junior high school, art class became elective. I did not take art class again until I went to college, and I sort of was leaning more towards an academic future, and I was a history major. And I was taking history classes and English literature classes, and there was just so much reading to do. I decided to take an art class just to have a class where I wouldn't have any reading. Started taking mostly art classes, and then decided I really want to go to an art school. And the compromise I made with my parents was to go to a university that had an art school within it. And so I ended up at Washington University, which has a really good art school, but I was still able to take academic classes. I was introduced to, art writers like Borges, and we also read, classic modernists like Kafka and Rilke, and that whole pantheon not only creates sort of the literary experience that enters into my work, but thinking about thinking that I think we can't escape in our culture, because after the modernist revolution, we're so self-conscious of what we're doing. We can't escape the idea that we're not. You can't just naively set up an easel and paint something without thinking about what you're painting and painting about what you're thinking about, in this endless loop that is what the mind does. And the more I go back beyond the modern era and explore the past, I realize that this wasn't a modern invention. And when I first read Don Quixote, I realized that when literature was invented, they were already thinking about how artificial it was and playing with the form. And I think that's really a part of the Western art culture, very much so. And there are all these devices in painting that I've discovered, like Rubens would have a painting on a curtain, and angels are holding up this curtain, and the illusionistic scene is painted on the curtain that these angels are holding up, and behind it you can see some architecture that's revealed. And so they're very, even in the Baroque era, they become very self-conscious of the artifice of all the art forms that were being explored at that time. And that's a kind of a big part of when I think about a painting. I don't just think about the subject matter, but I think about the artifice of how it's going to be set up, what kind of space it's going to be in, and how the viewer enters into that space. Like the painting I just finished, where it's the scene is behind a curtain that's being pulled back. And I'm always playing with these visual devices. I'm very conscious of how much of the classical world, which I'm fascinated by, still is with us in our culture. And sometimes I go all the way back and, reading Homer or the pre-Socratic philosophers, looking at, I've just been looking through this book of Sicilian art from ancient Sicily. And this extreme, it's sort of like the earliest manifestations of the Western art vocabulary that the columns that are now in every bank and government building from the 19th century, but there it is in this very hand-wrought, primitive, and much more alive form. And you realize that some of these ornaments that are on these banks, like egg and dart molding, is a fertility symbol, and it has this pagan significance, and we ignore it and walk past it, and some people think it's, oh, that's awful, that's history, that's the past, and can't relate to it. But if you're alert to it, it's very much alive, and if you know where it came from, it's even more alive. So I'm very cognitive of how the classical past is still alive in all the variety of modern forms. They seep in, I think, whether you're paying attention or not, but I think a lot of people aren't even paying attention to where their feet are stepping anymore, and so we're splitting into multiple cultures, and some of us are still living in this world, and some of us are living in some alternate reality. Many of us are living in many alternate realities. The ideas accumulate, and often when I'm working on one piece, I start to get ideas for other pieces, things that are cast-offs from one piece. It's like, I kind of like that. That's just in the background here. Maybe I'll make a whole painting about that. And so the ideas sort of build that way. So recycling these characters become, sort of the end move in one piece becomes the opening move for another. And it sets the whole thing in motion. The figures I make in sculpture often become very architectural and temple-like, which is suitable for something to represent the human, because I think a dome is very much of a representation of the human mind, and so the dome of a church is sort of the mind of God, which in our Western theology is a reflection of our own minds. We invent the gods in our own image, and that's not to downplay them in any way. It's just to say they're a manifestation of human creativity, and at the same time the source, which goes back to the sort of the postmodern thinking about thinking. I have this habit of sort of anachronistic clues in the painting to the fact that this is not an identifiable time period or place. Is this like Ottoman Empire, 16th century, or is this ancient Greece, or is this the modern era? They're smoking cigarettes and there's a Zippo lighter. So I like having this indeterminate time and space, which I think it suits the mood that these are invented stories and invented environments. Learn about art by looking at it. Discount what you read and what people say about it, and measure it against your own reaction to the work itself. That art history isn't what you read in books, it's the objects that have been left behind by the cultures that created them. Go to museums, look at the art, figure out what you think of it, and if everyone seems to feel that this particular artist, is terrible, and that this particular and another artist is great, question that. Create your own context and create your own path through it all. And no idea is too stupid to explore. It may be too stupid to stick with, but it's not too stupid to try, because a lot of my dumbest ideas have really worked out for me.